All right, it's seven bells. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to program two of our preseason series. Tonight we're going to be talking about base mechanics. As you know, we've changed the format this year a bit. We're starting with some crew mechanics kinds of situations because, as we discussed last week, we don't operate in a vacuum. We have to work together as a team. We are the third team on the field. We have to be the best team on the field in terms of our communication and our willingness to help each other. So we're going to look at two clips tonight. They happen to be from the same semifinal that was played last November. It was the Hudsonville East Lansing game that was played at Greenville High. So Gregor, if you'll cue the first clip. And what I want to do, take off the annotations, Gregor. What we're going to do is we're going to let it run through the first time so everyone gets a feeling for what's taking place here, and then we'll talk it through. All right, pretty clearly a fumble. All right, so notice first of all we've closed down with the back judge, the umpire, the referee, and the short wing. So the first item that we have to deal with here is how many people we need to have in that close proximity. Right. Now, not to pick on anyone, but the person least likely that should be invited to this party is the back judge. All right. We've got the umpire, we've got the short wing and the referee in there. That's plenty. We need someone to remain behind because you would be surprised the types of things that happen just outside of the initial area of problem. All right. Now you'll notice the field judge is walking in, keeping his distance. He takes a look. Not sure what he's looking at, but we have not seen any sort of signal to stop the clock. Now, this is clip 19 of the game. So this is about midway through the first quarter. So time is not of the essence. Let's put this play at the end of the half, or better yet, let's put this play at the end of the game where Team A is attempting to score to tie or go ahead. All right, so we have a fumble, and it's not immediately clear who has recovered the fumble, someone on the crew must stop the clock and then ensure that the clock operator has seen our stoppage signal. And if not, make note of the time on the clock because we're going to want to make a clock adjustment. All right, once we get the clock stopped, now we can go through the process of digging, pulling people off the pile, determining who is in possession of the ball, and the referee making a good announcement. Certainly a signal and probably use of the microphone to say the ruling on the field is that the fumble has been recovered by A or B. Now, in this particular case, this was recovered by A, believe it or not. You certainly wouldn't. In fact, let's go to the end zone view. Based on the initial players diving for the ball, you would think that Team B would have ended up with this ball. I went back and checked the video to determine who did recover, and Team A retained possession. All right. Now, that ball may have changed hands 3 or 4 times in that pile. From our point of view, unless we have a clear and obvious immediate recovery for which we're going to recognize that it's A or B, and then it doesn't matter what happens after that. Unless you've got one of those situations, whoever ends up with football at the bottom of the pile is who you're going to give it to. But the point is, we let 8 to 10 seconds go off the clock. Now, again, first quarter, really not a big deal, but we are creatures of habit. And furthermore, if we would have a play that would occur during crunch time, it certainly would be nice to be able to refer back to the team that's disadvantaged by stopping the clock to say, Well, coach, we did that in the first quarter, but mechanically, it's just the right thing to do when we don't have that clear and obvious recovery. Okay. All right. Next clip. Well, first of all, any questions about that one? We got to make sure that someone is looking at the clock and someone has clock awareness so that we get that taken care of and that we don't um, inappropriately allow time to roll off the clock. All right. Um, Next clip. What we're going to have on this one is a potential targeting and also a catch, no catch. Now, we're letting it run through, and it's the fact that we don't have targeting is probably the most obvious part of this particular play. You know, heads are up, there's no overt leading with a forearm or a shoulder above the neck of the player. This is just football. Collisions are going to happen out there, and this is one of those times where you throw the ball into that area and you probably are going to get hit as a receiver. Now, the other part that maybe isn't quite as obvious is whether the receiver was able to keep that ball off the turf. Now, when we look at the end zone view, it will be more clear that this ball does hit the turf, gets bounced up in the air, and you can see that the receiver does not have firm control of the ball, and it hits the turf, and then he kind of pins it against his shoulder. Now, you should know that the football can touch the turf and still have a catch as long as we have firm control of the football with the hands and the ball does not juggle around in there. So if we've got meat hooks on it and the ball hits the turf, but it doesn't cause the ball to come loose, then you do have a catch. Now, the part that I want to work through here, let's say for just a moment that we have a flag down for targeting. And we also have then disagreement in terms of whether we have a catch or a no catch. And then just for fun, let's throw a third variable in there. Let's say that this receiver is down and injured. All right. So and first of all, I should mention that the umpire does a really nice job spinning here and helping on this pass and is instrumental in getting this play ruled correctly. He can see that it hits the turf. He doesn't go crazy, just gives a nice firm signal, walks towards the players positively with positive body language, and we get it right. All right. So good work by all concerned here. But now we've got this player, let's say he's down. So we've got to work through that. First of all, our first responsibility is we need to make sure that we take care of the player that's injured. So we're going to stay with the player until we get medical personnel out there. That might be the coach. Once the coach arrives, we're out of there. All right. Do not hang around there. That's not where you want to be. Um, there isn't anything positive that you're going to contribute to that situation by hanging around once the coach arrives. All right. So, what we need to do is we need to sort through what we have here. Now, does it matter whether this pass is caught, whether this is a completed pass or an incomplete pass in terms of the enforcement if we end up with targeting? Absolutely. So what we need to do is we need to prioritize here. And the first priority is that we need to determine the catch, no catch. Now, we may need to bring people in. We may need to have conversations about what did you see? What made that pass incomplete? The back judge and the umpire should be very, very clear. Look, before he gained control of this ball, it hit the turf. This is an incomplete pass. We don't want this anything other than incomplete, you know. And with that sort of information, that should be pretty clear to the referee to say, all right, this is what we're going with. All right. Now, we can work through the process of, was this a foul? Now, in federation rules, you don't have to have the involvement of a disqualification. You can simply have personal foul, but we still want to go through the process of, all right, what caused this to be a targeting foul? Was this a blow to the head? Was this leading with the crown of the helmet? We want to go through whether it's 913 or 914. Now, those may not be the applicable references by federation rule, but we're talking about this is a defenseless player, so he gets some additional protection, but we want to work through this. All right, and then we need to come to a conclusion, and then when it's all said and done, then the referee is going to step out and is going to say the ruling on the field is an incomplete pass. And then if we're picking up the flag, then the referee is going to say there's no foul for targeting on the play. The contact with the player was deemed to be legal. And away we go. But we have to work through those sorts of things. Now we start working on this stuff during the preseason, during our meetings. We start talking about how we're going to handle situations when when we have adversity on the field, when we have emotional kinds of things that occur, so that when we get to those times, we're really pretty well prepared to deal with them. So a couple of plays for you to consider, to think about, to talk about. And you're probably not going to have circumstances that are identical to this, but there may come a time when you have multiple factors to deal with. So any questions on either one of those crew mechanics?
Rich, we got one question. I'm gonna pause it here for a second. So there's a rather popular celebration move amongst the kids. So you see number 8, he's in the far right of the screen. He's gonna act like he's putting his sword away. Is that an unsportsmanlike gesture?
Yes, that would be equal to brandishing a weapon. That's a great pickup because I as many times as I've looked at that clip, I did not see that, which is a good reminder to us that we can't all be focused on the same things out on the field. So whoever noticed that, kudos to you. And yeah, that's a sword, that's a weapon, and we should flag that. So that's probably going to come from the deep wing at the bottom of the screen because the back judge appears to be engaged with the incomplete pass signal. Now, hopefully we don't get tunnel vision as the deep wing or the short wing on the bottom of the screen and miss that. But yeah, that's something that we want to get. That's a UNS. That's something that is definitely not going to build goodwill out there.
Thank you.
Good pickup. Nice job. All right, so let's transition to our main topic tonight, which is base mechanics. We don't operate out here on a vacuum or on an island. All right. Now, what I sent you does not have this screen, this particular slide. As I was preparing for the session tonight, I got to thinking about the whole notion of mechanics. And it really comes down to a couple things. First of all, we need to understand the macro and the micro of what we're doing. Mechanics are all about what we do at our individual positions and how we go about our business. That's true as the referee, the umpire, every place on the field. But then the other part that often gets overlooked or maybe doesn't get as much attention as it should is that we have to coordinate the responsibilities so that we properly get the full field covered. And that really is a big part of why we have 7 officials as opposed to 5. And at college, in college football, 8 instead of 7, is that what we're trying to do is to provide an atmosphere which not only is equitable, but creates safety for the players on the field. So to combine the two, we have to understand not only what we do, but also how what we do fits in with everyone else's part. So if you're the umpire, what that does to create opportunities for the referee to look other places. Um, Short wing provides them the opportunity for the umpire to look at different things, and that's why we have to define what the rules are on the field. Now, the picture at the bottom right, I guess I would say based on 2/1 that we would be going in the direction towards the right side of the screen. But and that's not meant to diminish or uh, impugn anyone's preparation. These are all fine people, but it just goes to show that we can, under the best of circumstances, make mistakes. And what the point that I'm trying to make here is that the more we prepare, the more we communicate, the less we're going to do this. Okay. So we can't undersell that. All right. So let's get out of this. Um, Mechanics being in the right place at the right time permits us and our accuracy to go way, way up. My boss, Bob Wagoner, who is second in command in the COC, is very specific about it. He says, when we're out of position, our judgment is terrible. And those of you who know Wags know that he's a man of few words, but it's like E.F. Hutton. When he speaks, everybody listens, and it's true. Our accuracy goes way up when we've got people where they belong, when we have the back judge with plenty of distance to be able to see the full field, to be able to pick up a wide array of things that are coming his or her way. Same thing with the deep wings. We get in trouble when we allow that defensive back and that receiver to all be running side by side, because all we can really see is the back of usually the receiver, because the defensive back typically is on the inside. We can't really see what's going on as opposed to being 7 or more yards ahead of it to be able to see through it. So mechanics cannot be undersold in terms of its importance. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about some basic techniques as we go through these clips. You've heard me talk about the scissor stance. You've talked about bit working from the back edge of the white. Uh, Deep wings in particular, not shuffling, but or not backpedaling, but shuffling and then turning to run, those sorts of things. We're going to talk about initial position, and we have some video that's going to support all of this, including read and react. So, Gregor, let's go to the first group, which is our base mechanics. And we're going to look at a few clips. We're going to go pretty quick. I'll make the key talking point and we'll keep moving because, as I say, we have quite a number of things to cover tonight. All right, the reason for this first clip is it gives us a perspective in terms of where the snap is coming from and what we're doing as a deep three. All right, you can see that our deep wing is lined up at the 5 yard line. We're snapping from the 28 yard line. Now, you've heard me talk repeatedly that none of the deep three line up between the 5 and the goal line. You're either on the goal line or you're at the 5 yard line. All right. So here we're snapping from the 28-ish. So it's fine that we have the deep wing on the 5 and the back judge is on the goal line. Once we get any closer to the 25, my suggestion would be put the deep wings on the goal line, put the back judge either in the middle of the end zone or the end line, depending on down distance and situation. All right, next clip. All right, it's really, really important that we continue to maintain cushion. Now here we've got a play that it's a fake run, and you can see our deep wing has stayed downfield and has not progressed. If this pass gets caught, it gets muffed. We may be challenged deep. Now, in this particular case, that's not what happened, but you can see the back judge has done a really nice job. He didn't take the cheese here. He didn't take the bait. Uh, he retained his cushion. It is in great position, as is the deep wing at the top of the screen. We need to make sure that we stay in our proper mechanical responsibilities. And here, whether we got tricked or we just chose to hang around in that spot, um, we did not perform the mechanic correctly. That is a forward progress spot that we want to give to our short wing. Now, we got lucky here because nothing else came of this. We ended up with a forward progress spot at about the 34-yard line, or it should be the 34. All right, next clip. This is going to be good reaction and really nice technique by our deep wing. We're at the top of the screen. You can see the play is developing, giving ground, shoulders are square to the sideline, gets back to the goal line, and recognizes a completed pass for a score. All right, that's a good read. Down, distant situation, likely pass. We cover our ground. If anything, we could have been a little further away from the goal line, but really nice job by our deep wing. This is what we want. We want you stationary at the goal line whenever possible. In the event that the ball either gets knocked out and becomes a fumble, or knocked out and becomes an incompleted pass, knocked out becomes a touchback because it touches the pylon or goes out of bounds in the end zone. There are a lot of scenarios, and we want this covered inside out by the back judge at the goal line, as he is, and as we have our deep wing. This is what we want as much as we can get it. All right, number 6. Now, this is going to be a rollout, and it's going to take both our deep wing. That's all right. That's a different clip. All right. So what we get here, yeah, this is should be 23.
I just found 6 for you.
All right, 6 is fine. All right, this is going to be a rollout. Now, in our scouting, we know that this quarterback is a double threat. He can pass or run. He rolls to his left. A receiver, if we look at the end zone view, we're going to see that the receiver runs a route up the sideline, which is going to take our deep wing with him. Whether we think he's going to pass the ball or not, we have no choice but to give ground to make sure that we have these two players properly covered. We know that we may know that it's highly likely the quarterback is going to tuck, but this is just really for show running the pattern. We can't rely on that. We always have to stay within the confines of what the mechanics tell us to do. And here the deep wing needs to respect the fact that the receiver takes a DB with him. We'll figure it out up front. You know, the referee comes over, and by the way, referees, we've got to be careful. Now, this is the quarterback, so you're going to get a little more latitude following him, but we've got to be careful that we don't pursue too close to him from a yard line standpoint, or that we get like right behind him because someone as mobile as this quarterback may reverse his field. And worst case scenario is he gets behind you. Okay, so we got to be cautious about that. All right, next clip should be number 25. Now, we know that we have initial responsibilities. And on this particular play, the initial responsibility for the deep wing would be the widest receiver. But as you can see here, he's a decoy. And the hot receiver on this play is actually the slot back. Well, actually, he's on the line, but it's the second receiver in. So we can't have tunnel vision on our key. We've got to make sure that we keep wide vision to see this guy coming. And you can see school is out pretty quickly here. That pass is thrown and it's caught just about where we're standing. Now the back judge, due to his depth and keeping that broad perspective, is able to cover this play. But this is a play that we must have our deep wing read properly and be at the goal line to accept this play. All right, run it from the end zone view. Yeah. So there's an adjustment in your scouting. You should see this kind of a play, but whether we see it on video or not, we can't be surprised by it. We've got to respect the fact that not only do we have an initial responsibility, but quite frankly, we may have the possibility of a receiver coming all the way across the field into our lab, which may require us to get greater depth to stay ahead of it. All right, let's look at number 32. Now, here's the value of having a really good cushion. We're going to have to see the end zone view of this to get the talking point. That gives you an idea of the mobility of our quarterback. All right, because our deep wing had his depth, he saw that receiver go out of bounds. Now, it's pretty obvious contact was the cause of the receiver going out of bounds. So this is not going to be a problem from the standpoint of a foul, but we're still going to recognize the fact that he went out of bounds. So if this pass is first touched by this receiver inbounds, whether it's caught or not, what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the referee and say the touch by the receiver was legal because the defense put him out. We don't use terms like forced out. That got lost in the Michigan State Nebraska game a few years ago because there was question in terms of whether he is really forced out or not. Now we talk about contact as opposed to being forced. All right, next clip. This should be 86. We're going to have some really good downfield work here by our deep wing and the back judge. All right, look at it from the end zone view. One of the good things about this video is that we did get two perspectives, the end zone view and see that back judge had really great depth. He found the goal line. He continued to back up. He didn't check up too quickly, kept the players in his visual plane. Looks really, really good. One simple swipe to make it official that it's an incomplete pass. We don't need more than one. Good job. And the final group of this one is number 89, this group. Final clip of this group. We got to continue to officiate. This play starts to go to the bottom of the screen, and this quarterback all of a sudden ends up coming up the far sideline. So what does this mean for the deep wing at the top of the screen? First of all, let's go to the end zone view. We need to recognize that even though it appears that the play is going away from us, we still need to supervise the players that are over on our third of the field. So you can see that everyone starts that way, and now all of a sudden we go the other way. That changes all of the blocking angles. So that block that was made at about the hash mark, we have to be prepared to make a judgment. Is it a legal block? Is it from the front? Is it above the waist? Is there any restriction, material restriction that would create an advantage, disadvantage situation? We have to continue to stay in our responsibilities as opposed to saying, oh, the play's going away from us. This is a play off. There's no such thing as a play off. All right. All right. Let's now go to read and react. All right, one of the things that we have focused on over the last couple of years is doing a better job on reading and reacting. And what that means is that at the snap, we are ready, we're in an athletic position, and we're ready to go in the event that something comes our way. Now, in this particular case, we needed to do a couple of things. First of all, we needed to retain cushion, but we also had a responsibility for judging those blocks out on the edge. One of the things that has to happen probably at all positions is we have to multitask. You certainly have to multitask as a member of the deep three because you're going to have plays like this on a regular basis. So what you have to do is either while you're shuffling or while you're running, you got to look back over your shoulder and you're watching that engagement between the wide receiver and the defensive back while you're progressing up the field, which means that you need to have confidence that the white is clear. And the way we have the white clear is we insist on having team control so that players are out of the coaching box so that coaches can stay in their box out of the white. You've got to have the confidence that you can move up and down the field from the white. Now you can see here, maybe we get confused. Maybe we think the 5 yard line is the goal line. Not really sure what we have by this gentleman, but we don't get to the goal line. Now, fortunately, this doesn't become a diamond cutter for us at the pylon. He scores pretty easily, pretty obviously inside the pylon, but it's not always going to work out that way. We've got to be at the goal line. And we also need to make sure that we're at least at the back edge of the white, and if necessary, further away from the sideline back to the limit line so that we can make a decision on something that goes right at the pylon. All right, next clip. All right, we're going to get beat on a fade pattern here. Is this 25? All right.
25.
Now, once again, that comes from the slot receiver. So we've got to make sure that we don't get fooled by that we don't get tricked. Take the bait. Yeah. We're going to get a double move down here by this receiver. He's going to come out like he's going to do a little out route, and then he turns it upfield. And fortunately, the pass is a little underthrown, and he's not in full stride. So we don't get past like we're standing still on the expressway. But if you look at the end zone view here, we just, we've got our feet in concrete and we can't afford to do that. We've got to be We've got to be athletic. We've got to think along with the players to know that there's a possibility this is going to be a double move and be prepared to respond to it. So we get the pump, and there he goes. And now I like the wide position of the deep wing, but unfortunately we got a bad read, just like the defensive back, and almost had a bigger problem than it turned out to be. Fortunately, he stepped out of bounds as opposed to racing down the sideline and we're chasing. All right, next clip. Another double move. All right, now here you can see we've got a really, really tight judgment decision right at the sideline. Now, having been in this position, I can tell you that this is not a certainty in terms of whether this is a catch or not. There's no way that this gentleman can see hands and feet at the same time. It's way up too close to him. We've got to have the depth to be able to make that determination that we have firm control up here and that the foot hits, and then because he's going to the ground, we survive the ground. And that's a problem. Now, let's just say for the sake of discussion that our short wing has something else. He has a bobble. He has that first foot going down out of bounds. You got to come down and take control of that situation, particularly when you recognize that your brother or sister official is out of position, and we are clearly out of position here. So if that's the case and you've got a dissenting opinion, you need to make sure that you come up and we get this play right. All right, now this next clip is going to be, we're going to have a correct call. This should be 102, Gregor. This is a correct call for DPI. This is going to be a cutoff by the defensive back. Once again, he can see that he's beat. He takes this guy off stride, and you can see how close he comes to catching this ball. The ball is clearly airborne when this defensive back takes him off of his route. That's DPI for a cutoff. Now, the to the credit of the deep wing, he gets the foul, which is good. But once again, we've got to continue with our progression. We need to be observing this action by the DB while we are in a retreat mode. Now, we don't worry about getting the flag into the exact position, make them here. This is going to be a 15-yard enforcement from the previous spot. So it doesn't matter where the flag ends up. We're going back to the previous spot anyway. Just get the flag out there so it's visible. Continue to work. Even if you have to do something like this with sort of a side throw, continue to work your position. All right, 25. We're going to have a snap from the 38. Now, we're going to get beat on a fade. This fade pattern surprises us. We've just got to be able to recognize if we go back to the snap, this is a one-on-one situation. Anytime you've got one-on-one, whether you're the back judge or either one of the deep wings, you've got to recognize there's a good chance that they're saying our athlete is better than their athlete, and they're going to try to do something of a fade sort of a flavor. Okay. So we can't be surprised when this turns into a fade route. We gotta have the motor already revving so that when we see this, that we get some depth and stay ahead of it. We also need to work wider. Now, this is a catch, and we rule it properly down short of the goal line. So we get a number of things well on this particular play, but based on the fact that we're snapping from the 38, we're starting like at the 15. So we certainly should have time to get back and be stationary at the goal line. So I would grade this mechanic a C, maybe even a C minus. We've got to be more precise in that. Back judge does a good job getting to the goal line. All right. Now, this is the last clip of this particular group. This is really a great job by our deep three. This is going to be a long play that is going to develop here. Do a nice job. Look at that deep wing. Shoulders are pretty close to being square to the sideline. Back judge gets to the goal line ahead of time. Even the deep wing at the top of the screen that the play was going away from him, he still gets back to the goal line. This is just really great awareness on the part of these guys. Nicely done. Really good hustle. You can see that we don't have to be the fastest athletes in the building to officiate anywhere on the field, especially the deep three. We just need to be smart. And this is a case you can see he's got his feet moving. We're in an athletic position, and that's good work. All right. We're doing well on time. All right, let's transition now to some goal line coordination. In addition to covering our goal line, we also need to coordinate between the short wing and the deep wing. Now, this play is going to go to the left of the screen. This is going to be, we're snapping from the 6-yard line. You can see the deep wings are at the back pylon. Now, our short wing did not go to the goal line. I'm not sure. Maybe this is a 5-person line judge or head linesman, but regardless, and while this doesn't specifically speak because we focus on the deep three, these are the kinds of coordination things that we need to do. And one of the reasons why before every snap, as the deep, I'm saying to my short wing, I'm on the rear pylon. You got the goal line. We're constantly reminding each other of those things. Now, let's say this ends up in a quarterback sack that takes it back to the 8 or the 9-yard line. All right, now the short wing needs to communicate, hey, succeeding spot is the 8, come on up to the goal line. Now, everyone on the crew should hear that. Um, and that should be an alert to the other side of the field to do the same thing because we need to bring the deep judges back up to the goal line. We've got to have that dialogue, that ongoing dialogue. And it doesn't need to be a lot of words. It can be just a few words, you know, your goal line. Or for the back judge, I'm on the end line. Just a reminder that he's back there. And if he's on the end line, the deep wings better be on the goal line. All right. All right. Next clip. We got to have a relationship between the short wing and the deep wing. All right. Now, this is a play that's going to go towards the screen. You can see we've got our deep wing right where he needs to be at goal line extended. Now, one of the things you need to communicate is when the ball gets close to the two, the captain in this situation is going to be the deep wing. Deep wing is going to determine where that spot is going to be. Unless we've got like the short wing has him stepping out of bounds earlier. But if this play like here, I want that deep wing to say, my spot, my spot, my spot. And then you're going to come back and you're going to square that spot at the 2 yard line or in. And what we want is for the short wing to pause no closer than the 5 yard line. You can see he wants to come down. He wants to operate like a 5-person line of scrimmage person. And what we need him to do is to be a 7-person mechanics short wing. All right. But the onus here is on the deep wing to communicate my spot, my spot, my spot, which then tells the short wing that he's going to pause and stay out of it and help with the cleanup. All right, number 126. All right, now this is the same pair as the other side of the field. You can see that our short wing penetrated too far down. That's why before every play, you need to say, I'm on the goal line. You've got it to the 2, all right? But then the short wing is going to pause around the 5 unless he has him out of bounds before we get to the 2. And then the deep wing is going to call the ball, literally call the ball. My spot, your spot. Put the ball on the 3, John, Mary, Fred, whoever, okay? We just need to work through those things. And if we spend some time on it, we'll get better at it and we'll do it consistently well. All right, should be 27. Good spot, short of the goal line. All right, we've got some decisions to make out there. As far as blocks, I didn't see a foul in any of those. This is clearly a line of scrimmage person that is used to working 5-person mechanics. That is not the short wing's determination that that's a touchdown. That's the deep wing. Now, whose fault is that? Well, whose responsibility? Stay away from fault. Whose responsibility is it? Yeah, we can say it's the short wing that messed up here, but I'm telling you that deep wings, unless you're communicating where you are and what you expect them to do, you're equally responsible for this mechanical mistake. All right. So do your job. All right. Clip 59. Now, deep wings, when you get to the goal line, there's only one scenario that's going to take you off of your goal line. And this is it. This is it right here. When the pass goes to the deep third of the end zone, the back third, you're going to take a couple of steps down the back edge of the white, just about where that photographer is, and you're going to assist the back judge with catch, no catch. Now, you're going to be secondary unless the ball is coming towards you. In other words, the receiver is turned away from the back judge. All right, you're going to have a greater role in that situation as opposed to what happened there, where the ball is facing the back judge. But those photographers, they don't need to be that close to the field. Those lenses they have can pick a gnat off a fly's fanny. They don't need to be that close to the field. Get them back to the limit line where they belong so that you can come down that back edge of the white and assist with this play. Now, as previously mentioned, this is another line of scrimmage person that obviously is a 5-person mechanic individual. He's down there confirming with the back judge, and the deep wing is walking up behind him going, "What's up? Funny meeting you here." All right. That's a tight decision back there. And it would be nice to have some confirming information coming from our deep wing. That's the one scenario where you leave the goal line once you start there. All right. All right. 108. All right. Now we've got the deep wing starting in at the goal line. And now we're going to get a throw that's going to go into the end zone. And you can see that we've got our deep wing has now left the goal line. I don't know what caused him to leave the goal line. He's in the correct position right now. If you roll that back, Gregor, he's at the limit line. This is primo position where he starts. All right. Drop the anchor right there, other than the previously mentioned situation. You should be back here at the goal line extended to make this ruling. Okay. All right. Let's look at a couple of change of possession plays. Now, while we're gearing up the change of possession plays, think of an intercepted pass or a fumble recovery and return as being no different than a punt return. All right. Now, in this particular case, let me set the stage for you here. What we're going to get is where this pass receiver at the bottom of the screen is going to run a route, which is going to take our deep wing at the bottom of the screen off his initial spot. And then we're going to have a pass thrown underneath, which is going to be intercepted. Okay. Now, the other thing, stop it just a second, Gregor. Referees, watch your compatriot here near the goal line. All right, there's the deeper route. There's the pass underneath. So let's run it back. First of all, is that a foul on number one? Now, if we were doing a survey of sorts, we would get opinions on this. But the timing of this touch interception by the receiver in front of that action is going to take us off of any consideration of a foul. And that's clearly not going to be a block in the back. The timing of this is that this occurs during the pass. Okay. So we're not going to rule this as a block in the back. That has the effect of a block in the back, but that's just football. Now you can see that our short wing, we started at what, the 12-yard line, maybe 12-yard line. All right. So there's no reason for him to progress downfield. He should be at the very least still at the 12, but when he sees that pass intercepted, he's got to get those shoulders or keep those shoulders square to the sideline, and he's got to get to goal line extended, just like we would in a punt return situation. Now, as luck would have it, this play ends up at about the 5-yard line. He almost gets rolled up on, which would have been unfortunate as well, but we don't handle this properly mechanically. All right. He needs to get to the goal line. And this spot, we need to be patient and wait for our deep wing to come down and take this spot at the 5. Now, the short wing, let's say that the deep wing has been delayed because he's got players downfield. He's coming from a fair distance away. You can help the deep wing, put it on the 5, put it on the 5, put it on the 5. And if he's really delayed, like, let's say he's still 30 yards downfield, okay, after you've been to the goal line, come back, square it off, and take the spot if you're the short wing. But here we don't give the deep wing the opportunity, and we don't perform um, change of possession mechanics properly. Now, why is that important? Because if this dead ball spot turns out to be the goal line instead of the 5, do we want the line of scrimmage official trailing this play and making that determination down, fumble, out of bounds, all those things that can happen down there on the run, on the move, or do we want him back there at goal line extended to be able to make those decisions because he's in the proper position and stationary to observe? Pretty obvious, pretty obvious. So that's why it's really important that we perform not just this mechanic, but the other mechanics that we're talking about, and you'll talk about in other positions with your position coaches. We have to perform them correctly because the other people on the crew are depending on the fact that you're going to do your job and do it in accordance with how we've prescribed the mechanics to be. Okay? We get away with this because the goal line is and the pylon is not threatened. We just need to make sure we do a better job of it. All right, from the same game, next clip. We're going to have another intercepted pass, only this one is deeper in Team B's territory. You can see the reaction. It's intercepted, and you can see our short wing immediately gets some depth. Now, the only thing that I would offer to the short wing here is I appreciate the hustle and the fact that you wanted to get ahead of this play. Thumbs up on that. The thing that we want to do, though, is we want to keep those shoulders square. So, excuse me, so that you're looking back over, in this case, it would have been his left shoulder at um, the blocking and other action that may be forthcoming into that particular area. All right. But it's a really nice acknowledgement and then reaction on the part of the short wing to see that we have a change of possession and he gets the depth. Now, if you let that run a little further, you'll see that our deep wing does come up and take this spot out of bounds. That was really, really well done. All right. We've done well on time. Gregor, let's go to catch, no catch. All right. Now we're going to look at some plays. This is probably the kind of stuff that you like to see the most because it involves judgment, and it's just really interesting to see how close things can be in terms of football acts down, other sorts of things. The reason for this first slide, obviously, is that whether you're catching the ball, intercepting the ball, recovering the ball, to be awarded possession, you have to adhere to the same principles as outlined in the rule book. All right, so we have a number of things throughout around the field. We need to make sure that we understand the not only the rule book, but also the philosophies that apply when we have catch, no catch, and that our mechanics put us in position to have the best shot at seeing what we need to see to make decisions. All right, the first order of business is we have to have firm control. Hands or arms before the ball touches the ground. You have to have a body part down in bounds. You're going to see plays that are going to illustrate these basic concepts. Maintain firm control long enough to perform an act common to the game. That might be hand it, pass it, kick it, turn up field, all of those things, ward off an opponent, all those sorts of things are indications of an act common to the game. If you're going to the ground, you have to survive the ground, whether you're in contact with an opponent or not. Oftentimes, players are on the verge of losing their balance while they're reaching for a pass. Um, so the same principle applies whether you're being tackled or not. Here's a key factor. This applies equally anywhere in the field of play, including the end zones. You don't get special compensation or dispensation if you're in the end zone. You still have to do all of these things. Um, if the ball is lost, similar to what we had in that play in the East Lansing uh, Byron Center game, where the ball is up in the air, if you lose possession of the ball, obviously you have to secure it before it touches the ground. Um, so proper mechanics put us in positions so that we can see we've got to collaborate with our opponents. We've got to have a clear mindset that we can't say, oh, he can't possibly catch that ball. And then all of a sudden we're surprised that he did. So we have to maintain sort of a neutrality, if you will, in terms of I'm going to see this all the way through to ensure that either it's a catch or it's not a catch. And by the way, that could apply in the opposite direction. Oh, this guy's going to catch this ball, and then, he muffs it, it gets flipped around and it ends up not being a completed catch. So we need to work for mechanics. We need to be patient, allow the play to unfold. We need to have verbal and nonverbal communication with adjacent officials. We need to apply our rules and our philosophy to get plays right. All right, Gregor, I'll get out of that and we'll go to some clips here. We just have a few, and I saved the best one for last. All right, this first one is going to be, did he have firm control of the ball? So as we look at it, firm control turns upfield. And then the other part that to me makes this a catch is that his forward progress is stopped. All right. So this is tight. There's no doubt about it. But I believe that we're correct in ruling this as a completed pass. And it comes out probably after he's down. All right, number two. All right, we're going to skip that one. That's the one that we looked at before. This hits the ground. You've seen it. So in the interest of time, we'll go on. All right, now here's a situation where this receiver is going to be airborne and he just nicks that pylon. So when you're airborne and you touch a pylon, well, whether you're airborne or you're not, what's your status? You're out of bounds. So when this becomes a play that any grandma or any child in the stands can recognize as an incomplete pass. Let's say in this particular case that he does catch the ball, but his foot has contacted the pylon while airborne. That makes that an incomplete pass. It's incomplete, out of bounds. Okay. All right. Next clip. This is going to be a catch on the sideline. All right. Now, we've got two officials. It's right in between two. So we've got two people looking at this, two perspectives. Now, the ball is facing the short wing. All right. So that does not absolve the deep wing from having responsibility here. It just means that the short wing uh, is going to be able to see things that the deep wing cannot. All right, so at the end of this play, now, this appears to be a completed pass. Looks like he drags at least 1 foot, and it appears he survives the ground. But let's say that the deep wing has incomplete and the short wing has it complete. All right, the conversation needs to be from the perspective of the short wing. He should go to the deep wing and say, what made that incomplete? And first of all, if you hear words like I thought, all right, we're done. We're not about what we thought, we're about what we know. All right. So if you know he's in bounds, stick with your call. Um, but if he comes up and says, hey, look, I know that the right toe was in bounds, but the left toe, the left big toe hit out of bounds before the right toe. All right, now we've got something to talk about. But we're going to go through that process of what made that incomplete. And again, that's the rapport and the communication that we need to develop between short wings and deep wings. All right, next clip. All right, this is going to go to the other side of the field. We're going to get the same, only we've got the opposite result. Our short wing has got this out of bounds. So let's say that, and you can see that we've got a drag, right? So let's say the deep wing has the back foot in bounds and that let's say that would be the left leg, left foot. And yeah, he's got the right foot out of bounds, but the first thing that he sees is a drag. All right, now we got to have the conversation. Well, what was the status of the ball at the time? Now, there's also a possibility, it looks like there's a little bit of a bobble in there, right? So maybe then the short wing comes up and says, wait a minute, what made that incomplete? And the short wing can simply say, well, two things. First of all, I got a foot out of bounds, but regardless of that, he bobbled the ball. Okay, now we're done. Now the referee is going to announce the ruling on the field is an incomplete pass. Okay. All right. Couple more and we'll call it a night. All right. This is going to be a play that is going to be pretty obvious that we have a player down in bounds. Now, there are three things, if you go back to the PowerPoint, that you need to have. You need to have firm control, you need to have a foot down, but he's going to the ground. So what does he have to do? Has to survive the ground. All right. Now, we signal this on the basis of the first two things. We don't wait for the third. He's in great position, goal line extended. We do a lot of things right, but we're too quick with making this judgment. All right. Now, it worked out for us here because he does survive the ground. But right about now would be the time that I'd like to see that touchdown signal. As opposed to when we did it's probably a second, maybe 2 seconds quicker than it ought to be. Gregor, get ready to stop the video. Good, 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 good. See, we're already starting up with our arms. Show me the ball. Right now is when you should signal touchdown. All right. He survived the ground. Now, back judge. Let's say in the process of this guy going to the ground, you see that ball come out of there and it's rattling around. All right. You're coming. You're banging that. Incomplete. All right. Then we're going to have that conversation between the deep wing and the back judge. And he's going to say, look, everything was great, but when he had his back to you, that ball came loose. We want this as incomplete. And then once again, we're going to take that information to the referee, and he's simply going to say the ruling on the field is an incomplete pass, third down. Okay. And then we move on. Which one is this? All right, that's good. I want to go to 117. I'm going to leave you with a good discussion one. All right, let it run live all the way through. All right, again, if I had Gregor set to go with a poll, we would do a poll here. And there are several options that you would have. If this is at Ford Field, this goes to replay. All right, so
Rich,
uh,
tell me what the options are.
okay. So the first one would be it's a fumble and it's recovered by Team B. That's the result of the play. That's what the crew ruled. Another result could be that this is an incomplete pass. Another result could be that it was a completed pass and his knee was down at the time or at a time that created a dead ball. All right. So we don't have high definition here. We only have one view. My guess is that if this went to replay, it probably would be a stands, that it would be a fumble, because we just don't have the benefit of being able to determine what really happened here. But it does illustrate the fact that we need to make decisions in terms of whether um, firm control is gained and an act common to the game can be performed. So next week, we will be midway through our preseason training. It'll be week number 3 of 5. We're getting close. We're getting really, really close. So I'm sure you're excited and looking forward to those early season games. We want to make sure that we hit the field fully prepared, from a rules standpoint, a physical training standpoint, and certainly mechanically. That's how we will be prepared to handle those early season games. And as we've talked about in the past, a lot of those early season games have playoff implications because you've got two teams that very likely will be making the postseason. In fact, hopefully making high seeds in their respective areas. Um, so we need to be prepared to handle that diamond cutter, that really hotly contested game right out of the chute week 1. So you're doing the right thing, putting the time and effort into this. Thank you for taking the time out of your summer to either look at this live or watch it by recording. And we're going to stick with it. And hopefully you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying sharing with you. So with that, we'll say goodnight and wish you well, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week at 7 o'clock.